The dizziness time seems to be very long and short, and the memory in front of the black short-haired girl is distributed in fragments. Memories are scattered like broken glass. There is the hustle and bustle of pushing the boss with the game guild, and there is also the sadness of a thin figure wielding a dagger at a wooden stake alone after the sunset. At the end of many fragments, there is a middle-aged man patiently wrapping himself up. In front of people, he covered his face with a red scarf and had slightly messy long hair. He was the legendary devil who stopped children from crying at night, but behind people, he was just a poor man who was with his daughter. "Quick! Hide in, I'll take care of these mice." The middle-aged man let the girl hide in the closet, and hurriedly picked up a weapon to face the swarming foreign enemies. His skills are extremely vigorous. Even if he is caught off guard, he can still face the siege of dozens of people with ease. Dancing on the tip of the knife, like playing musical notes, played a dirge called Death amidst blood and wailing. The dagger is the strings, the long knife is the keys, and all the furnishings in the room are his pedals. Anything can be used and turned into a weapon for killing. Taking one step and counting one step is an ordinary person. Taking one step and counting 3 steps is a genius. A middle-aged man can take one step and counting 10 steps. Only when the enemy's throat encounters the dagger that has been waiting for a long time, will he realize that the opponent has already started to arrange this killing situation, and every clumsy resistance I make will only bring me closer to death and more dangerous. After all, there are only a few assassins who can escape the murder. Several assassins did not understand at the moment of death. How could they be so stupid? How could they be so comfortably stabbed to death by the opponent's dagger? Enemies from outside kept pouring in, and the small, even shabby living room was covered with corpses. The enemy seemed to realize that skill could not gain the upper hand, and they began to use their superior numbers to kill. The rats in Stormwind City, just because you want to kill me. The middle-aged man's roar was accompanied by fierce killing moves, circling among the enemies like a whirlwind. Blood was flowing on the ground. The girl hid in the closet and watched the killing. Her young heart was greatly shocked. She couldn't understand why these strangers broke into her home to kill her father. She felt dizzy even more, and some strange memories seemed to pop up in her head suddenly. When she shook her head slightly, she didn't notice at all. Ziotan, she accidentally stepped on it. Her body suddenly lost her balance, she staggered and fell out of the closet, and the girl was directly exposed to the assassins. One of the assassins didn't even look at it, and threw the dagger in his hand at a distance of several meters. The sharp dagger drew an arc, and passed quickly between the girl's neck. "I'm going to kill you." The eye sockets of the middle-aged man who was proficient in assassination seemed to be split open. He was very aware of the power of this blow, and even more understood the result of this blow. Seeing his daughter clutching her neck and falling helplessly in a pool of blood, the middle-aged man could no longer keep his composure. He gave up that second topic skill, and like a berserker, daggers and long knives danced wildly, besieging his 3. The strongest assassin was cut into a corpse in an instant. "Kill him! Kill him! Let's all go, let's go together!" The enemy no longer played any tricks, only knew to stab him with a sword. Elegance no longer existed, and his footsteps no longer moved. The middle-aged man traded injuries for injuries. Relying on the anger in his heart, he beheaded all the enemies. At this time, he unexpectedly discovered that the girl's injuries had healed. He didn't know what the mystery was. His mind was gradually blurring, and he only had time to shout in front of his daughter and many supporters, "Tell those lackeys of Stormwind. His actions are just." The original owner died on the spot, her future and her past were replaced, and the Traverser occupied and healed this new body. Even though 3 days had passed, the roar of that middle-aged man was still lingering in Vanessa Van Cleef's ears. Edwin Van Cleef, this middle-aged man who was jokingly called De Fan in his previous life, died in front of him. It's ironic to think about it. A despicable assassination. Stormwind City's elite assassins came out, using the traitor's advice and some luck, to complete an ugly mission of bullying the few. The uncomplicated misunderstanding between the two parties was ignored by the nobles. Obviously, the conspiracy could be exposed through dialogue, but the nobles adopted the most drastic and perhaps the simplest method in their minds to deal with the problem. Misunderstandings turned into misunderstandings, and misunderstandings turned into hostility. Now the hostility turned into a blood feud. 25 assassins were killed on the spot, and the predecessor's father, the leader of the Defias Brotherhood, Edwin Van Cleef, was also stabbed several times, and fell in a pool of blood full of grief and indignation. As the most powerful assassin trained by SI-7 in Stormwind City, Da Fan's skill is enough to crush a group of attackers. After he defected from Stormwind City and raised the flag of rebellion, similar assassinations happened from time to time. UU reading www.uuganshu.com. Originally, these assassins were not the first batch, nor should they be the last batch, but Vanessa's accident changed everything. She has nothing to do with Edwin Van Cleef. In her previous life, she also posted a lot of posts on the internet exposing Edwin Van Cleef's ugly face. He is pitiful, but he is also hateful. He is not a good person in the traditional sense. People who want him to die can line up from Westfall to Stormwind City. Among these people are not only nobles, but most of them are commoners. They don't understand the grievances between Edwin Van Cleef and the nobles. They only know that this group of people destroyed their lives, made them leave their homes, and separated their wives. If it is said that Edwin Van Cleef has grievances and wants to avenge Stormwind City, then to whom should these civilians complain about their grievances? This guy is not a good person. Even his anger, resentment, and violent killing of the assassins in the end were for that girl, not her. But this body still can't mind this blood feud, and let her shake hands with the assassin and those nobles to make peace, as if nothing happened? Sorry, I can't do it. This is the only obsession in my body. I must at least avenge him. Let those fat-headed nobles hear my voice. For Edwin Van Cleef, a respectable, sad and hateful middle-aged man, the man puts a full stop. Putting on the badly damaged leather armor with a little blood, and picking up the one-handed sword called Cruel Barb, she tied the cloak in front of the mirror, and took care of her short black hair. There was still immaturity on her beautiful face, and the aftertaste of the assassination seemed to be visible between her eyes. She raised the collar of her leather armor to block the scratched but healed neck, and pushed open the door with one hand. Edwin Van Cleef's daughter may be gone, but Vanessa Van Cleef is. In 3 days, Vanessa has mastered all the combat skills of her predecessor. In this crisis-ridden world, without force and the ability to escape is absolutely impossible. Edwin Van Cleef's art-like skills are beyond her reach, both in terms of age and experience. She was just 14 years old, and her strength, speed, and physique were far from reaching her own limit, but she already had something extraordinary at this moment. Her footsteps are light, she walks silently, her eyes are sharp, and all the disturbances around her cannot escape her eyes. The memories of her previous life have been completely absorbed. Heroic. According to the previous memory obtained from Da Fan, Stormwind City's official assassin organization SI-7 made a relatively finer division of ranks for thieves. Apprentice, as the name suggests, is the kind of level that you can't get enough of. At the beginning level, you can use various professional weapons proficiently, and you can adapt to general thieves' work. Vanessa's predecessor stayed at this stage. After being resurrected from the dead, the Traverser has improved on the basis of her predecessor, and now she has reached a middle-level class. The gap is widened, and many people will not be able to reach this rank in a lifetime. Considering her age, there will still be some room for growth in the future. After the mid-level is the high-level, after the high-level is the legend. Da Fan is a high-level thief that is very close to the legendary level. The lifespan of a human being is too short, and the words of endless learning are applicable everywhere. After learning all the skills, this person's lifespan will be half gone. If the injury is not treated in time during the operation, the lifespan will be even shorter. The elves have caught a lot of high-level thieves, and legends are not uncommon, but on the human side, so far, there are no legendary level thieves. According to the legend, MI7 has only roughly set up two ranks, the demigod rank and the rank, which belong to the ranks that have neither been seen nor heard of. Vanessa has completely inherited the memory and ability of the original owner. The original owner has some talents in poison preparation. In this era when many potions are still handmade, configuring potions requires experience and a little feeling. Her feeling is very good. Every time can use the most appropriate dosage to configure the most effective potion, or poison. We must first integrate the Brotherhood. We can no longer do those bad things in the past. We must develop in a low-key manner and win the hearts and minds of the people. The current reputation is too bad. Build a high wall and slowly become king. She walked into the hall and sat down. On the chair in the middle, he slowly sorted out his thoughts. Wo la 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 la. Vanessa lowered her head with a strange expression, looking at a Murloc chef cookie dressed as a cook, only as high as her knee, holding a fire stick. I asked someone to call some leaders, why are you the only one here? Wo la 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 la. Vanessa. I don't know how to fan communicated with this guy before he was alive, he couldn't communicate at all. With a distressed face, she waved her hands, okay, I understand what you mean, let's go down and rest first. After driving away the Murloc chef, no one came after waiting for half an hour. She found that the matter of revenge had to be postponed, and now there was a more urgent matter to be dealt with. The control of the Defias Brotherhood could not be left alone. The assassins in Stormwind killed Defan, and the fraternity had no leader. The organization's hearts were in turmoil. It seemed that the members of the fraternity did not recognize her leadership right now. Vanessa in the original time and space chose to escape, and escaped from the military fortress built by her father alone. After experiencing countless tribulations and pains and seeing the true face of the world, she returned to the starting point and wanted to inherit the destiny that should belong to her, but by then it was too late, too late. Isn't she going to run away and start anew in a new place? Or go to Dalaran to learn art from a teacher and become a mage? In the future, it's okay to learn spells part-time. Anyway, this is not a game, and there are no occupational restrictions, but not now. Is it safe outside? Just kidding, the dead mine under my feet is the novice area. From the weak woman in her previous life who had no strength to restrain a chicken, she has now become an assassin with superb skills, dodging bullets like playing, her self-confidence is bursting, and she has the posture of punching a fool, kicking and screaming. Of course, just thinking about it. Vanessa strolled around the military fortress of the dead mine, and soon had a feeling that the situation was grim. As an underground military fortress rebuilt after a huge gold mine was hollowed out, this geographical location is definitely not good. Even if she hasn't read the Book of War, she also knows the routine of Zhujiang and Guan Yu attacking with fire and flooding at every turn. It is called a mine, and it must be a low-lying area. What if this is a water attack? Hee. Is it too late for me to change my career and become an ice mage? The father of the predecessor, Comrade Defan, didn't know what to think. Yu reading www.yuyuganshu.com. The enemy didn't expect a water attack. He helped them create conditions and dug another river channel leading to the sea under the mine. Artificially created a secret military port, and usually use this port to do business with goblins, selling some gold and wood. If he crosses to Stormwind City, he doesn't need to send assassins to kill him. He finds a few water release points, and with a bang, if he comes to attack this side with water, he will have to GG. Defan is a mason and a high-ranking thief, but he is not a good leader, let alone a strategist, not a general. But I have to say that apart from his superb thieves' skills, his construction ability is definitely at the top level in the world, and he is even among the best. Edwin van Treef has two great achievements in his life. One is presiding over and building the majestic Stormwind City, which can be called the king of the city. Ship. It is indeed a huge ship. This battleship is called Dreadnought, a wooden sailing warship, and its shape is a bit like the Interceptor Dreadnought of the Royal Navy in Pirates of the Caribbean. What pleased Vanessa the most was that there were 30 cannons on both sides of the ship. The role of artillery is self-evident. A modern person knows that even if the caliber of these artillery is small, the firing speed is not fast. I can't stand it either. After all, extraordinary people are a minority, and technology is an important reliance for human beings in the face of orcs, undead armies, and demons all over the mountains and plains in the later stage. Gently touching the well-crafted barrels, these sharp weapons gave her great encouragement, and even provided her with a back road. The boat is strong and the guns are sharp, and he also has certain combat capabilities, so what are you afraid of? Anyone who is dissatisfied will be bombarded. Whether it is attacking the enemy or escaping, the giant ship is a sharp weapon. If Vanessa's small goal cannot be achieved, she is ready to follow the example of the sages, turn to the strategy, and go sailing on the sea. The giant ship is very important, but it is unrealistic for her to guard it 24 hours a day. In order to firmly hold the giant ship in her own hands, Vanessa quickly found Cookie, the Murloc chef who first took refuge in her. This guy proclaimed himself the captain after Da Fan's death. The position of captain must not be given to him, so find a Murloc to be the captain? Shame. Wow la 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 la. The Murloc chef ran up to her holding a fire stick, staring at her with two dead fish eyes, and looked up at her. It seemed very strange. We just met, didn't you ask me to come back? Why are you calling me again? Vanessa was also in a bit of trouble. She was only thinking about cannons before, but she didn't pay attention to the language problem. How should she communicate now? This is not English, but a new language called the Common Language, with a presumably similar letter but a completely different spelling. This common language is limited to most intelligent races, such as humans, orcs, elves, gnomes, and goblins. Sorry, the Murlocs are not within the scope of the common language. The Dreadnought belongs to the Van Cleef family. Before she finished speaking, she saw the Murloc chef throw a piece of cheese at her feet. What kind of cheese is it? It was glowing green on the outside, like a puddle of roasted mud, and exuded a pungent smell. The sensitive female thief quickly covered her nose with a red mask. The other party didn't want to talk to you, so they threw a piece of poisonous food at you? That's what Murloc chef means when he says he's not satisfied, right? She held her nose, and changed the topic. However, the Van Cleef family will not treat any loyal subordinates badly. At this time, I saw the Murloc chef put away the poisonous cheese on the ground with lightning speed, and waited for her to finish with wide eyes. If this guy is not allowed to be the captain, he will poison me to death. Vanessa secretly calculated the pros and cons. She needs a warship, but it doesn't mean that she will go out to fight in a warship now. In many cases, this warship is a deterrent, and it is also a proof of inheriting the status of the previous leader. The Murloc chef's desire to monopolize the battleship can be used by her temporarily, and he will block all black hands who try to get their hands on the battleship for Vanessa. After thinking for a while, she said, "The Van Cleef family needs to see your ability, you have to prove yourself. How about this? I will give you a trial period to see if you are qualified to be the captain of a dreadnought. Now you are the captain of the probationary period." "How long is the trial period?" "Did not say." "After the probationary period, is it formally employed?" "She didn't say either." If he doesn't know the tricks of procrastinating words in modern society, let alone the traps in words, the Murloc chef is so happy. Wow la la la. The language is completely incomprehensible, but the rhythm is full of strange rhythms, and at the same time, there is a faint meaning of singing. I saw the Murloc chef running into the warehouse from the deck like a duck, swaying and swaying. Not long after, he ran back again, and the excitement was similar to Sunhausa yelling "I have a name," my name is Sun Wukong. Successfully recruited or deceived her first subordinate, under the leadership of the temporary captain, Vanessa tried the cannons of this world. There was a loud bang, and the sound echoed far away in the cave, and Vanessa's brows gradually relaxed. This world has extraordinary power, and the physical fitness of human beings has completely surpassed her previous life. Don't talk about others, just talk about herself. The speed of running 100 meters in 6 or 7 seconds is the same as that of playing. She activated the secret sprinting technique taught to her by Edwin Van Cleef, and she rushed over the distance of 100 meters in just over 3 seconds. Thieves will use something called energy value to bless themselves. De Fan taught many skills to his predecessors, all about the use of energy value. From Vanessa's modern perspective, this thing is similar to the elemental energy used by mages. It doesn't matter a dime, but it's like a skill of using mental power combined with adrenaline. For the sake of fairness in the game, everyone has 100 points of energy. This is not the case in reality. Everyone's energy value is different. Some people are talented, and this value is extremely high. Some people are relatively mediocre, and their energy value is relatively rare. Like De Fan, he can keep fighting in a state of energy blessing for a long time, which is a bit like bullet time. In his eyes, the enemy is all in slow motion, but in the eyes of the enemy, he is as fast as if he is about to fly. According to Vanessa's understanding, what flows in Daffin's blood vessels is not blood, but adrenaline. Of course, she also has this tendency now. When her mental power is highly concentrated, not to mention cannonballs that are not fast in this era, even directional spells can be avoided. But this still does not detract from the power of gunpowder weapons. There are only a few outstanding and talented people, and most ordinary people still cannot resist gunpowder. This is a world where the technology tree is seriously crooked, where gunpowder, shotguns and swords coexist, and the future alliance even creates a flying battleship like a cheat. Is you reading www.yuyugonshu.com familiar? The Alliance's black technology is on par with Marvel's SHIELD. The building is here, and there is no shortage of weapons and equipment. Vanessa is very pleased, but the fluctuating hearts of the people in the mine still cast a layer of haze on her optimistic attitude. Once De Fan died, the hearts of the people here immediately dispersed. Walking in the winding and somewhat narrow underground passage, through the dim light, Vanessa could feel the inquiring eyes projected from all directions. Occasionally, a few fraternity members walking in the light had indifference on their faces, ignoring the daughter of the former leader who walked past them. Relying on the remaining prestige, she struggled to gather several big and small leaders who were still alive, or hadn't escaped yet. When De Fan relied heavily on the general, Foreman La Kezuo, his head was split in two from top to bottom when he was found. This ugly and greedy guy will definitely not be able to come. The goblin Sydney, who controls the logging machine, can't see people when he is born, and he can't see corpses when he is dead. Seeing that the situation is not good, this guy ran away. Another goblin smelter was even more ruthless. He swept away all the smelted gold in the warehouse without leaving a single piece. This guy usually looks like an old man, he walks 3 steps, and when he works, he relies entirely on his subordinates, and he is only in charge of giving instructions. He often complains to Fan, saying that he is old and frail, and his life is not long. But according to several witnesses, this guy came out of the warehouse with a heavy backpack 3 times bigger than his body on his back. His usual laziness disappeared. Not only could he walk, but he could also run. "Don't let me see it, I'll chop you to death if I see it." Vanessa was so angry that her face turned blue. This should have been her own gold. When it was De Fan's turn to be the last goblin, she looked a little better. The Green Captain died in battle, with more than a dozen stabs in his body, and temporarily killed 3 assassins, which was considered to have lived up to De Fan's high expectations. De Fan's bodyguard, Mr. Torin Heavy Fist, was seriously injured, and a very rare poison was eroding his life. Even though the Tauren has always been known for its strong physique, Mr. Heavy Fist could only lie on the bed at this moment, like old people in their dying years are waiting for death to come. Without knowing the specific formula of the poison, even if Vanessa is quite talented in this area, she cannot prepare an antidote, and can only rely on some conventional antidotes to maintain her life. Except for the 2 escaped goblins, among several important leaders in the Daffin era, only the Murloc chef around him was unscathed, and the rest of the backbone was gone. Vanessa is also happy and worried. The good news is that there is currently no one who can fight, and she, a talented mid-level thief, is the strongest in the field. The bad news is that there is no one who can fight at the moment, and she, a talented mid-level thief, is the strongest in the field. She thought for a while, then turned to ask the non-famous miner Johansson, who was not in the mine before, so he escaped unharmed. Know where he is. But today, Vanessa is very thankful for the other party's sneaking behavior. Let's see what kind of stuff those Dafan's subordinates were before. Goblins, Murlocs, Tauren. Now finally there is a normal human being who can communicate with himself, thank God. How many of us are left? She asked. Johansson, who is dressed as an old miner, is still respectful, and he is not arrogant because Vanessa is young. He is very grateful to Edwin Van Treef, the former leader, for tolerating his sneaking behavior, not to mention it in the future, at least for now should give face. As an old miner, Johansson was somewhat popular in the fraternity. A pensive expression appeared on his face full of vicissitudes. After thinking for a while, he replied, maybe less than 300. Less than 300. Vanessa felt that the back molars hurt a little. The Defias Brotherhood had more than 3,000 people in its heyday, but now less than 1/10 of them are left. Because of Dafan's perverse actions, many people with lofty ideals left the Brotherhood, but according to Vanessa's previous memory, there were still 2,000 people. Have those assassins from 3 days ago opened Wushuan? Killed more than 1,700 people? Obviously impossible, these guys are hiding. Actually, Vanessa. The old miner Johansson quickly changed his words when he saw her clear eyes. Miss Van Treef, many backbones of the Brotherhood are still in the prison in Stormwind City. They're rescued, and the Brotherhood can still bounce back. Vanessa said oh, and then she didn't continue. What a joke. Old things are also simmering badly. Those people in the prison are Dafan's right-hand men. If they are rescued, should we listen to them or me? Instead of developing in a low-key manner at this time, instead of bringing 300 defeated soldiers to the prison in the capital to rob people? Can this be done? Even if he could succeed, who else would accept Stormwind City's revenge in the end besides himself? This old thing is digging holes to hurt itself. Secretly crossed the old miner Johansson, all my races must have a different heart. The old miner didn't get a response from her, so he thought for a while and said again, also, we can contact the Jackals and go with them to ransack Sentinel Hill. He looked at the other small bosses. I said long ago that those goblins should be hanged. Look now. They have taken away all our savings, we need weapons, food, and all kinds of life supplies. Old Johnson was right. Miss Van Cleef, we really need some supplies, or our men will lose control. Perhaps we should also call the Murlocs and Kobolds to act together. They chattered and started talking, saying that they lacked this and that, but in fact they didn't lack at all, but they didn't change their thieves and wanted to go out and grab one. If it succeeds, everyone is happy, if it fails, Vanessa will take the blame. If she was still her predecessor, it would be difficult to deal with such a group of unkind people. Dafan never refuses anyone who comes. Half of the thieves in the Eastern Kingdom have gathered in the Brotherhood, and they are all thieves with a bad reputation. Ambitious, gathered here only because of one thing, money. There is a problem with the hearts of the people in the organization, and there is also a problem with the occupational division of the members of the organization. There are almost no fighters or mages in the Brotherhood, not to mention priests and paladins. By the time they work hard, there will be no one to find, and this organization needs major surgery to be reborn. 1 fork, 2 forks, 3 forks, this one has a better attitude, so you can keep it, and you can keep it if you observe it. Looking at the bosses with the loudest voices, she didn't get up slowly until the room became quiet again. Wolf people? Kobolds? There is an old saying that people who are not of my race must have different hearts. I can tell by your expressions that you have never heard of it. You reading www.yuyugonshu.com. Let me tell you that in this world, people who can only people of the same race can be trusted, only human beings. This statement was more politically correct. The thieves didn't take it seriously, but they didn't refute it. They never thought that kobolds and jackals were beings that could be equal to themselves. One of the thieves with sharp-mouthed monkey cheeks and a gloomy look said in a long voice, "Miss Van Cleef, the brothers below need some supplies, or they won't obey orders." "Yes, miss, it's okay for us to work harder, we can't let the brothers below suffer. We also don't want to rob those poor people in Sentinel Ridge, isn't there a way?" Vanessa looked at the group of people with a half-smile. They all took her for a fool, so let's see who fools whom. She coughed, "Who said we have no money?" Hearing money, the eyes of a group of people lit up. The fraternity has a secret treasure buried in Westfall. It is the Van Cleef family, a reserve fund left by the family many years ago. "If you think it is necessary, you can open it now," she said hesitantly, as if she had experienced a fierce inner struggle to reveal the secret. "Oh? There is even a secret treasure." The little bosses of the fraternity were all taken aback for a moment, but then they were relieved. This is very reasonable. For a thief as strong as Edwin Van Cleef, there is nothing wrong with leaving some treasures behind. Treasure, treasure. Their minds were completely filled with this word, and Vanessa asked them to take the order of their confidants to act together, and they accepted it without even thinking about it. Later in the day, 5 small boats and more than 20 thieves sailed out of the River of the Dead Mines and headed northwest along the coastline. Dafan was poor and poorer, and the little money he had was all invested in his great cause. Such a strong thief wore excellent equipment every day, not to mention artifacts, not even a piece of epic equipment. Vanessa is the only child left in the Van Cleef family, so where is the secret treasure? But Vanessa, who was standing at the bow of the boat, did not fool them. There is no treasure of the Van Cleef family in Westfall, but there are others. There is an unlucky pirate captain named Chandel who left behind a small treasure. 2 silver ingots, a ragged padded jacket, and a rag bag are treasures? That's in the game. In reality, the amount of this treasure is not too exaggerated, but it is definitely not small. Daffin has been entrenched in the nearby waters for many years, and he knows many things well. The Brotherhood looks down on the pirates, thinking that the other party has no skills, so they just rush for words. Dedicated to building a technological tree and building a giant ship to bombard Stormwind City, his daily money is poured out like running water. Treasure? That little money was not enough for him to consume for 2 days. Dafan simply didn't like it, but he left a written record. Combined with the memory of his previous life, Vanessa quickly delineated the scope. With the group of thieves from the fraternity with different ideas, Vanessa landed on a small island a little more than 3 nautical miles west of the coastline. After identifying the location, she took 2 long legs and walked towards the north of the island. It is impossible to place it in the open air. No pirate would be that stupid. This is why Vanessa brought a large group of people together. Digging pits, destroying traps, and finding paths all require manpower. Anyway, it is waste utilization. Even if there is a loss, she doesn't feel bad. Here I am. This group of thieves with different ideas has no loyalty to the Brotherhood at all. They usually hide when they can assign tasks, but now their enthusiasm for treasure hunting is unbelievably high, and their professional ability has been fully utilized. 120, all with sharp eyes. While Vanessa was still looking around, someone discovered the hidden underground treasure house. Without an excavator, everything depends on manpower. A bunch of thieves rolled up their sleeves, picked up their shovels, and started digging the ground. At this time, they couldn't fall behind. They were working in full swing and didn't pay attention. Vanessa, who was leading the way, had disappeared without a trace. After digging a hole in the ground, 3 lives were taken back and forth. The thieves destroyed the 7 traps set by Captain Chandel, and then opened the door of the treasure house. What came into view was piles of gold, silver, and jewels, as well as many swords, armors, scrolls, some handmade products from Kalimdor, battle axes used by orcs, totem poles of Tauren, a lot of mess. The eyes of all the thieves are bright, don't care what these things are, whether it is jewelry or weapons, as long as they are taken outside, these are all money. The old miner Johansson noticed something abnormal. He looked around and was surprised to find that the leader of his side was gone. "Has any of you seen Miss Vanessa?" he hurriedly asked his companion. "Who cares about that little XX? Stop it, that's my gold." Before his companion could finish his sentence, he realized that a thief had made a move on the easiest Tokari gold, and he rushed over to grab it. "This is mine. Put that crown down. I command you to put it down." It was not a friendly gang in the first place, but in the face of interests, the so-called friendship and superior-subordinate relationship were immediately thrown out of the blue, and a few weaker thieves took the lead in stabbing their partners with daggers. Puff! The sound of sharp blades piercing into the body came one after another. Under the control of greed, more than 20 thieves fought themselves into a ball. None of them in the battle noticed that a thin layer of white mist was slowly surrounding everyone. A whisper whispered like a dream came to everyone's heart, "Come on, come face your nightmares, and see if there is a little bit of courage in your hearts." The thieves found themselves back in the dead mine almost in a daze. The former foreman of the dead mine walked in front of them from the mist. The huge ogre was like a wall, roaring and punching. "Shot a rogue's head off." Not sure how the dead man came back to life, they could only fight back. The ogre was unexpectedly weak, and was quickly killed, and then they ushered in countless nightmares. The 3 goblins, Mr. Punch and Edwin Van Cleef took turns, and finally even Grand Duke Bolver Fordragon from Stormwind City appeared. They were just small characters before, not to mention Daffin, the Grand Duke, who are close to legendary figures. Even the elite goblin Captain Greenskin could not beat them, but now they not only resisted the attacks of these big men, but also won each other, played with great vigor. The melee affected their minds, and they didn't have time to think about the shining swords. Anyway, those who waved swords at them were enemies, so just kill them. On the tallest tree outside, Yu reading www.yuyugonshu.com. Vanessa watched the group of thieves hacking and killing each other for a long time without saying a word. Letting her go into battle in person is still a bit of a psychological barrier, but using some poison to make them hallucinate and kill each other, she thinks it is acceptable, and only then did the scene in front of her come into being. The Daffin and the Grand Duke were all imagined by the thieves themselves. The neurotoxin made them fear, and fear gave birth to these illusions. This is a unique secret recipe of Vanessa's predecessor. Even Daffin doesn't know it. The recipe is extremely ingenious, and it is easy to make with local materials. At this time, the effect looks even more amazing, a bit like a scarecrow in the DC world. The killing would eventually come to an end, and when there were less than 5 thieves present, she was ready to do it herself. A thief dancing on the tip of a knife has never seen blood? That was the joke, she had to take this step. The figure turned into a fright, jumped down from the treetops, and appeared behind a thief in an instant. She hesitated a little with the dagger in her hand, but seeing the bloodthirsty and brutal face of the other party, she still hardened her heart and used a kind of with a silent movement, the dagger was stabbed into the back of the opponent's neck. She stabbed in, pulled out, and she withdrew before the blood gushed out a second. It felt very bad, completely different from the feeling when practicing wooden stakes. Her originally light footsteps were a little scattered, which was heard by the surviving old miner Johansson. As an old man from the Masonry Guild era, and an old subordinate who has dealt with Defan from the very beginning, he has seen clearly this killing situation early on, but unfortunately he is powerless to change everything, so he can only hide and pretend to be dead. Vanessa's movement caught his attention, and he shouted in the direction of the voice, "Miss Van Cleef, don't kill me. I pledge my allegiance to you. I am loyal to the Van Cleef family." Vanessa turned a deaf ear, endured the discomfort, and killed a thief again, imagining that she was an artist, playing a hymn of death, and she felt much more comfortable. Johansson was still begging, hoping that she would spare her life, and the other two surviving thieves knelt on the ground and trembled. Vanessa turned into a shadow and appeared behind a thief who was secretly preparing to ignite the bomb. She reaped another life and cut off the fuse of the bomb at the same time, before turning back to look at the two survivors. "I am loyal to the Van Cleef family." The old miner Johansson cried tearfully, and the other thief hurriedly swore that he would never betray. Never betraying is absolutely nonsense, she doesn't believe it, but after thinking about it, there is no need to deal with these little bosses, even if it needs to increase the rest of the professions in the Brotherhood, it is still necessary to manage the thieves at hand. She raised her hand to set off a firework, and within a short time, the Murloc chef drove to the island with more than 30 sailors and thieves who were still loyal to the Van Cleef family in the dreadnought. "Clean up the loot, let's go back." In addition to Chandel's treasure, her so-called loot naturally also includes this gang of thieves who killed each other. It has always been a thing that adventurers like to see, but her hands have always been very black. The third battle to hunt SA has caused countless people's anger. At this time, they stood still and did not move. Instead, they instructed the old miners to rummage through the corpses and select usable materials. "Yo! Your hands are very red." Speaking of the other party's puzzled words, she took a fine-grade dagger and a shield. The dagger used by Defan before has been damaged in the battle. Vanessa only inherited a one-handed sword named Cruel Barb. The dagger currently used is just an ordinary vanity weapon. Now she throws away the vanity dagger and steps across this level of excellence is directly replaced with an excellent level weapon. The new dagger was named Buzzing, and she held it in her palm. She tried stabbing, cutting, and slicing. The dagger was a little heavier, but it was extremely sharp, and the air resistance was almost non-existent. With this dagger, her shots the speed is 0.1 second faster under normal conditions, which can be called a huge improvement. She was very satisfied with the dagger, but she didn't know whose private collection it was, but she just accepted it with a smile. The old miner also handed her a high-quality shield, and she weighed it in her hand. She couldn't use this thing, throwing a shield like Captain America. "I don't have this skill." "Throw the shield directly to the old miner, this is for you." A group of people emptied the treasure house, and then the corpses of those thieves were not spared either. Killing people in the wild, and then dumping the corpses in the wilderness, is a little less deterrent. Bringing these corpses back to the dead mine and showing them to all the thieves will deter people with ulterior motives. The giant ship sailed into the secret port without a sound. The thieves heard about the treasure and flocked to it. Let alone 300 at the scene, just looking around, they knew that the number exceeded 1,000. Vanessa stood on the high platform, with her back against the giant ship, all the artillery was in an excitable state, and the bright muzzles were aimed at everyone. She asked the old miner to carry a large box in a cliched way, and then kicked it over from the side. Gold, silver, and jewelry were scattered all over the ground, and at the same time, the corpses of more than 20 thieves were also hung on the mast of the giant ship like flags. Excitement and fear coexisted. She was sweating in her hands, but she still said loudly, "Everyone in the Defias Brotherhood listen to me. I am Edwin Van Cleef's daughter, I have the treasure, I have the dagger also, I am going to be the leader now, who agrees? Who opposes?" Shouting at the top of my voice is a bit uncomfortable to be honest, but many leaders in this world are high-level fighters, born with human speakers, all of them have loud voices, all have iron lungs, and their breath sinks in the dantian. Everyone in the ground can hear it, and the loud sound seems to be equated with courage, which has led to no one researching a loudspeaker until now. This bad habit has made her a thief. Although it is not difficult to make a paper speaker, she still chooses to do as the Romans do, raising her voice and shouting loudly. At this time, momentum is needed, and it is really ugly to use a paper speaker. The echo in the cave was good, and she was standing a little higher, so although her voice was a little shrill, it was not inaudible. The cannons on the giant ship also lowered their attack angle at this time, as if someone below said no, they would fire and bombard. Under such circumstances, who would dare to resist? If 1,000 people swarmed up, Vanessa would definitely have to run away, but unite for the same goal? Sorry, the word unity is not in the thieves' dictionary. Under the leadership of the old miner, the thieves reaffirmed the Van Cleef family's leadership over the Defias Brotherhood, and Vanessa officially took over the paramilitary organization that has dominated the western wilderness for many years. In the evening of the same day, under the coercion of Vanessa, the old miner and another small thief leader who defected to him began a purposeful beheading operation. UU reading www.uuganshu.com. Several parties quickly got involved. You hit me, I hit him. As the killings increased, the hatred between each other became deeper and deeper. The storm lasted for 3 days. Some of the thieves in the dead mine escaped, some returned from the outside, some died, and some disappeared. The number of thieves was the same every day. Vanessa used her extremely immature political means to stir up several conflicts. When everything subsided, she gave away a net herd of Chandel's treasure, with a carrot in one hand and a big stick in the other. Regardless of what she thought, at least in Dalai Lama. On the surface, she has completed the transition from Edwin Van Cleef to her own rights. Now there are more than 800 thieves who can be formally controlled by her and are willing to accept her orders. Most of them are thieves, only more than 30 fighters, 7 hunters and 2 mage apprentices, the kind of apprentices who can't pick their feet. There are no priests, no paladins. This deformed professional composition is too different from the Legion model she imagined, and reforms must be made immediately. Miss, 3 more brothers are missing today. Vanessa was sitting in Daffin's former office, reading carefully with a book of Azeroth scenery, and the old miner came to report to her respectfully. This is the 10th day after the crossing. After thoroughly grasping the Brotherhood, Vanessa asked the old miner to count the number of people every day to find the missing persons. In the eyes of the old miners, this is a bit hypocritical, isn't it, dead? What is said to be missing has no practical meaning at all. Vanessa put down the book in her hand, and was about to tell some secrets to the old miner. You must think those people are dead, don't you? Let me tell you, they're not dead, at least not quite dead. They're still roaming our minds. It's just that they're not human anymore, and turned into undead. Undead? Undead. The old miner Johansson's eyes widened instantly, as if seeing a ghost in broad daylight. He pointed to the ground under his feet, meaning here? By our side? Isn't the undead at the northernmost point of the mainland? We are at the southernmost point. Is it the legendary undead disaster that happened in Lord Aaron? Could it be that they have already arrived in the south? He thought Vanessa was alarmist, but he didn't dare to question her face to face. Come with me, let you take a look. Vanessa motioned him to go with her, and the two entered the original Daffin bedroom. There was no such thing as commemorating the old father. After the blood on the ground was cleaned up, here it has been transformed into a slightly crude laboratory by her. At this time, there was a Defias thief whose hands and feet were bound and who was still struggling and growling according to his body's instincts. Look carefully at his arms and eyes. Do you feel that the skin color is wrong? Because he has come into contact with something with plague toxin, he has already begun to become undead. I estimate that he will completely lose his mind in 2 days at most and become a ghoul who only knows how to devour flesh and blood. Vanessa shook her head lightly. According to her understanding, the undead plague is a kind of microorganisms. They erode and destroy the immune system of the human body, and even destroy the central nervous system in a short period of time. This process is completely irreversible. If it was in the early stage of the infection, letting the priest or paladin use a lot of gentle energy to wash it away, maybe it could be saved, but it is undoubtedly too late now. This plague toxin that transforms ordinary people into undead is a sinister method of the early curse gods. They put a large number of infection sources into the farmer's barn and infected the grain. When the farmer ate the grain, he was quickly transformed into undead. The cult of the cursed god relied on this method to obtain a large number of soldiers in the early stage. Good and bad people are mixed. The infected grain will not be eaten up by coincidence, there will always be some leftovers. The merchants are greedy for the profit, whether intentionally or unintentionally. They sell the infected grain all over the world, and many poor people who cannot eat they become new victims, and the place where they stayed for a long time will be affected by toxin radiation and become a new source of infection, and then a new cycle begins. The thieves in Defias would not be unable to eat, but Defan sent many men to collect weapons and equipment before. Among them, a large number of weapons that had killed the undead in the northern battlefield and were contaminated by the blood of the undead flowed to the south. These weapons have now become a new source of pollution. After a long period of contact, the toxins in the body are increasing, and the Defias thieves who have handled them are transformed into undead unknowingly. This conversion process is slower than directly swallowing the poisoned grain, but it is also irreversible. I heard that the time from infection to onset is very short. It actually takes 2 days? Is it related to personal physique? When it came to his own life and death, the old miner asked urgently. It's related to physique, but it's not absolute. This guy should only have skin contact. Look at his left hand, and compare it with his right hand. The left hand is exactly the same as a dead person. Vanessa signaled the old miner to go up and touch it, and the other party shook his head. He just stretched his neck and took a look. Indeed, the left hand has completely turned blue, the muscles have shrunk completely, the skin is tightly attached to the bones, the 5 fingers are curled up, like the sharp claws of some kind of animal, and the right hand still has some human appearance. What are you afraid of? We still have time, and the plague is still far away from us. She gave this restless subordinate a few words. I have to say that the cult of the Damned and Scourge Legion's routines are simple and powerful, not to mention pure thieves organizations like the Defias Brotherhood. Even the Scarlet Crusaders with a lot of priests and paladins often have soldiers polluted by the undead plague. Transformation into undead creatures. Fortunately, the origin of the plague is in the north, thousands of kilometers away from their side, and their side is not so serious that it can't be controlled. It can be said that in the crisis-ridden continent of Azeroth, the western wilderness under Vanessa's feet is definitely a treasure land conducive to development. This land is not a desert, but rather fertile. It's just that more than half of it was abandoned by their fraternity. Eliminate conflicts, bring people to reclaim the land, grow food by yourself, cut off external commercial circulation, and turn this place into a closed agricultural society. The plague will not cause too much damage to them. As for the outsiders, she doesn't care. Up. Johnson, are you afraid of death? Don't be afraid, I mean, do you want to become undead? Of course not. I think my life is good now, and I don't want to become those ugly things. The old miner answered very frankly this time. Vanessa nodded, I don't want to either, so now we need priests and exorcism to help us resist the erosion of toxins. The old miner thought for a while, but our relationship with Stormwind? They won't send priests to help us. Not to mention that they have raised their flags to rebel, and now they are standing on the opposite side of Stormwind City. UU reading www.UU. Even if they didn't rebel, they were still the good people who couldn't fight back when they were beaten or cursed it. Like those nobles in Stormwind City, they wouldn't care about the life and death of these poor people in the Westfall. Send a priest to save people? What an international joke! Stormwind City doesn't even care about these people's rebellion. How many people are dead? Vanessa's expression was indifferent. I understand, so I'm going out to find a pastor who is willing to help us. It's as short as half a month or as long as a month. I'll come back and leave you to look after the house. Is it okay? She doesn't trust the old miners, but now she really has no one to use, so she can only take a little risk. Which pastor do you want? How about I go? He wanted to be out of danger, but also to show his loyalty. If only you could go. Vanessa shook her head helplessly. I don't know the specific situation, so I'll go find it myself. The entire western wilderness is a desert of civilization. Grandma does not love her uncle. Comrade de Fan raised the flag and rebelled here for several years. Stormwind City just ignored it, so you know how embarrassing this area is. It's nothing, there is no priest at all, and the only paladin is the boss of Sentinel Hill, the sworn enemy of their Defias Brotherhood. The character of the old knight is admirable, and his selfless spirit is also worthy of recognition, but he participated in the murder of Daphne, that is Vanessa's enemy. She wouldn't plead with her enemies, let alone let the old knight stay in her mine of death, and shine two holy lights on the crowd every morning. The other party will not agree, and she will not agree. After Dafan's death, there is no possibility for the two sides to turn their hostility into friendship. Some enmities can be resolved, but others cannot. Now she can only go outside the West Wilderness to find a priest, and then either fool her or hire him to get him back. A day later, Vanessa, the old miner and 3 newly promoted small bosses launched a hunt in the dead mine. Several people were too scared to do anything, so she had to distribute 2 antidotes made by herself. Slight toxin infection can be resisted by using medicine and one's own physique. These people all have the strength of elementary thieves, and their physique is far stronger than that of ordinary people. Of course, if you want to pursue eternal life with all your heart, and drink the undead plague as a nutritional express, then no matter how advanced the antidote is, it will be useless. Back and forth, a total of 11 ghouls were killed. The corpses and everything they had been in contact with were cremated, and the ashes were scattered into the sea, which temporarily solved their worries. Vanessa carried her bags, weapons, and food, and walked through the mine in the underground passage. When she walked in the sun again, she had come to the southernmost tip of the Azeroth continent, Stranglethorn Vale. Just north of Stranglethorn Vale is the Twilight Forest, and to the west of the Twilight Forest is Vanessa's rebellious western wilderness. For a normal itinerary, you need to ride a horse and pass through 2 areas in a row to enter Stranglethorn Vale from a trail. Special thanks to Comrade de Fan. Comrade de Fan is not a fool. He knows that his subordinates have different ideas. In order to prevent them from adding chaos to his great cause, he let the miners and thieves dig holes desperately. At this time, the dead mine is the core. The underground tunnels spreading in all directions are extremely vast, probably second only to the Spider Underground Kingdom in northern Northrend and the mines of the dwarves. If de Fan can't win the sea battle, then the meaning of the tunnel battle is unknown. Anyway, he is dead, who knows what he planned before he was alive, and now the underground tunnel is convenient for Vanessa. A red ridge mountain range that traverses east and west separates what should have been an extremely vast forest. The northern side of the mountain range is affected by Karazhan's magic, undead, and monsters and nightmares. The trees are dead, the land is dry, and life is rapidly dying. Forest of Death. The south is protected by mountains, and it still maintains a very primitive ecological environment. Walking in an environment like a rainforest, the shadows of countless trees can provide cover for herself. Except for the humidity and too many mosquitoes, Vanessa feels that it is tolerable in other aspects. She looked up at the sky, identified the direction through the fragmented light falling from the shade of the trees, and secretly compared the scenery records and memories she had seen, and then ran towards the northeast. In order to cure the undead plague and to make her military organization more orderly, she had to go to several priests. But these days, it is almost impossible to find priests in the wild. Priests are all organized. They belong to the profession of eating the royal latte rice bowl, and they are directly assigned after graduation. The supply is in short supply, and there is no worry about unemployment at all. With such good conditions, people will naturally be loyal to the Stormwind Kingdom. Give up your iron rice bowl to fight the world with her? Are you crazy? Unless she breaks through Stormwind City and replaces the Rin family's throne, the group of priests will basically not work for them. Fortunately, there are always some accidents in the world. She remembered clearly that a special force belonging to the Kingdom of Stormwind was stationed at the northern entrance of Stranglethorn Vale. That's right, they are special forces specially trained to deal with jungle operations. The military strength of the Stormwind Kingdom was originally dominated in the south. Today, after defeating the orcs and the undead in the northern countries, and after defeating the undead and civil wars, the Stormwind Kingdom is actually the #1 military power of the human race. There are 21 established legions in the country. According to Dafan's estimates, the standing army exceeds 170,000, with sufficient soldiers and food, and the concept of military combat is very advanced. They have already proposed the concept of special forces and put them into practice. Coulson Special Forces. Now Vanessa is going to find the special forces abandoned in the jungle to find their survivors. This special forces unit has its own regular number, a formal organization, strict internal hierarchy, and a very clear division of occupations, including fighters, mages, thieves, pharmacists, priests, and many other occupations. The members are especially good at fighting in the jungle, and they are truly elite troops. It's a pity that they were forgotten by the nobles of the Stormwind Kingdom. The king disappeared, and the little king couldn't manage the council. Without orders from superiors to return, without supplies, they were eroded by evil magic, and now they are trapped inside and outside the country, and it seems that they will not be able to bear it. Near the northwest highland in the dense forest, a very narrow flat land has been artificially reclaimed. A winding path leads to the river beach. There is only one security guard at the entrance. Vanessa uses her superb stealth skills to easily get in the way. Went in. Brother Nimitz, let me tell you again, we need supplies to resist those lunatics. My men must use all their strength to survive in this jungle. Yu reading www.yuyugonshu.com. They don't want, and don't have the energy to find some lizard blood for you, let alone find any troll slabs. Did you hear me clearly? The middle-aged man in full body armor with two long swords hanging from his waist pushed away the young man in front of him. His somewhat grey beard was still trembling slightly, as if he was angry at Brother Nimitz's naivety and ignorance. He seemed to feel that his words were too heavy. He opened his mouth to explain, but he retracted the words when he got to his mouth, turned around and walked to the other side of the camp a little angrily. Don't let up, the jungle is more dangerous than we thought. Hold your guns, boy, keep your eyes on, think about our family, what we do is not for nothing, they are to protect the homeland. Quick, you guys come with me, go to the west. We found a velociraptor there, bring your weapons. The middle-aged man is very busy, it is all up to him to calm people's hearts, mobilize before the station, kill the enemy and arrange the defense of the camp. The Coulson Special Forces used to have a brigade establishment, but the staff has never been full. After entering Stranglethorn Vale, they began to reduce their staff on a large scale. The sultry climate, continuous rain, and humid environment are all enemies. The continuous fighting made some people's minds change drastically, and they became crazy and bloodthirsty. The soldiers who were still awake had to leave the large group and go deeper into the jungle. Not only did they have to survive here, but they also had to treat their former companions. The number of people was already dissatisfied with the establishment, and there were downsizing and civil strife. How many people are left? There are very few people who claim to be the rebels. They say it is a camp, but there are actually less than 20 people on the site. The middle-aged soldiers lead this group of people to garrison. It can be said that the pressure is extremely high. New enemies appear every moment. A true portrayal of them now. The young monk Nime had long brown-black hair, and his face was a bit green as if he had stepped out of the church and set foot on the battlefield. The refusal of the middle-aged officer made him sigh a lot. He is a scholar, a priest, not a soldier. Without assistance, he would not be able to undertake many tasks at all. He thought that his research would be of great help to the current predicament, but the middle-aged chief didn't think so, and the other party spoke harshly, telling him to give up all unrealistic fantasies and concentrate on the present. Nime went to prepare the healing spell with a numb expression, and if someone was injured in the next battle, he should at least do his part. After a busy afternoon, he repelled the attacks of 2 velociraptors back and forth. He returned to the camp covered in blood, and was so tired that he lay on the ground, not wanting to move. Resting on the spot for a while, he quickly insisted on getting up again, flipping through the notes in his hand under the faint moonlight, trying to translate the extremely simple troll language, and find out the mystery of troll witchcraft. Your efficiency is too low, this is for you, the troll language introductory guide used by the tribe, you don't need to thank me. Vanessa came out from the dark, took out a booklet from her backpack and threw it to the other party. This is still a piece of goods in Chandel's treasure, and I don't know who fooled the unlucky pirate captain, and put the broken book without 2 sheets of paper in the treasure house like a treasure. Vanessa was purely curious, so she picked it up and flipped through it casually, and now it's time to give it away. You. Seeing a person walking out of the shadows, Brother Nimitz subconsciously wanted to call someone, but seeing that the person was a woman, Vanessa gestured to him to silence him again. After thinking about it, he was still the same. He took 2 steps back, opened the distance between the two, and let the book fall to the ground. Why does a nobleman who came out of Stormwind City, a promising young monk, stay in this jungle? He has a bright future and a rich life, and he can be transferred back to Stormwind City just by saying hello to his family, but he is still willing to stay here, continue to delve into those barbaric troll witchcraft, and continue to wander between life and death. Why is he? Vanessa didn't wait for the young monk to answer, she said the answer herself. Because of love, unrequited love, the young priest fell in love with a female priest who was several years older than himself, and now the female priest is crazy, he wants to find her. I am not wrong about the method for the other party to regain their sanity, Brother Nimitz. Who are you? If you don't give me a satisfactory answer, I'll call someone. Calling someone is justified, but it doesn't violate harmony at all. His pastor is more like a scholar, and he doesn't have much fighting power. Let me tell you one thing, even if you save that female priest, it's useless, she made a big mistake, and the end of returning to Stormwind City can only be hanged, or the kind of secret execution. Stormwind City, the law can't take her, but some places can. If you want to do something, come and meet me south of the camp. Vanessa dived directly into the shadows and quickly left the scene. This camp is so small that you can hear the slightest movement. The rank of that middle-aged officer is not low, he looks a little bit higher than a middle-ranked warrior, not a high-ranked one. This kind of person is as stubborn as a rock, and he is not as easy to fool as a young monk. Making him treason is better than killing him directly. Vanessa had to keep out of his sight. There are also 2 hunters in the camp who study flash bombs and a few hounds with an exceptionally sensitive sense of smell. Even though her stealth skills are absolutely good and she has professional potions to cover up her smell, she was almost discovered several times. After saying what she should say, she disappeared directly. Vanessa's words made the young monk's face change slightly, but it was expected. The young monk knew exactly what the goddess in his dream was like and what she had done. Unable to bear the blow, he committed suicide. Knowing that his efforts are of no use, and the other party doesn't know his intentions, everything is in vain, but he still wants to do his best. Young Brother Nimitz, what's the matter here? The middle-aged chief asked outside his tent. It's okay, it's okay. He flipped through the troll language introduction left by Vanessa, thought for a while, and was about to make one last effort. Captain Doran, I really can't send our 2 warriors escorting me to find the troll's tablet? I've got a big lead, and I'm sure I'll find a cure, to cure all of you. Compared with Vanessa, whose origin is unknown, he must have more trust in Captain Doran, who knows everything. It's a pity that the captain still rejected him this time. The middle-aged man was as stubborn as a rock. Maybe I didn't make it clear during the day, Brother Nimitz, as the chaplain of the Khalsan Special Forces, you need to obey the orders of the army. I order you with the rank of captain and interim commander, give up your ridiculous ideas. We will hold the camp and wait for the reinforcements from Stormwind. There will be higher priests to deal with their problems, I promise you. Okay, I understand. You reading www.yuyuganshu.com. It's good that you understand. The conversation between the two ended quickly. Captain Doran thought he had convinced the young man, but he didn't know that the other party was disappointed in him. The love in his heart made him make a new choice. In the middle of the night, Brother Nime avoided the camp soldiers on duty and came to the dense forest in the south of the camp alone. Where did you agree to meet? That woman won't harm herself, will she? He clenched the one-handed hammer in his hand, hoping that the weapon could give him some strength. It's really late, but congratulations, you made the most correct decision. Vanessa fell lightly from the treetops beside her. Can you help me? How can you help me? It was pitch black before, and he didn't see Vanessa's face clearly. He only knew that it was a woman. At this time, under the moonlight, he realized that she was so beautiful. A woman, but, isn't this one too young? You could pretend to be mysterious before, but now it's not appropriate to hide your head and show your face. Vanessa took off her hood, and her young and energetic face shone with a layer of fluorescence against the moonlight. Her footsteps were light, leaving almost no traces on the fallen leaves and branches. Let me introduce myself. I am the new leader of the Defias Brotherhood, Vanessa Van Cleef. A puzzled look appeared on Nime's face. He hesitated a little, but his good character still made him tell the truth. Is it famous? Me, I don't go out often. Vanessa, who was still posing, was dumbfounded. Fortunately, she also thought about a lot of chicken soup, about good and evil, about justice and evil, and about human nature, but she didn't use a word of it, and people had never heard of the name of the Brotherhood. We have raised the flag to rebel, don't you all know? Is our presence so low? The originally prepared words were all in vain, and Vanessa could only reorganize the words. You know the current situation of your caring big sister, right? I looked at it from a distance, and I have to say that they are completely crazy. You have to be mentally prepared. What kind of mental preparation do you need? That is to say, even if this person is rescued, she may not be the same as before. I will help her, even if it takes my whole life, I am willing. Vanessa's female identity undoubtedly made the other party let down a little guard, and the young pastor revealed part of his heart. All right, let's save your love and say it face to face. I hope she won't mentally whip you to death. By the way, I am not obliged to help, and you need to pay some price. Vanessa put on the hood and keep going. The young monk quickly followed and promised happily, my family can pay, and I can hire you to help. I will bear all the losses in the process. Vanessa waved her hand, I'm not short of money. You made a mistake in the employment relationship. Now I want to hire you. My brotherhood has recently been affected by the undead plague. I need a priest to do a few days of investigation and treatment. Hearing about this matter, the young monk agreed after thinking for less than a second. Fighting the undead is the priest's bounden duty. He has no reason to refuse, not to mention that the other party is ready to help him, but he didn't. He found that there are undead somewhere. Infestation, he is obliged to solve it. I accept your employment, but only after this incident is resolved. Okay, let's make a deal. Vanessa nodded lightly, it's no use waiting for you to regret after you've entered a den of thieves. Miu's flawless chin pointed to the side, signaling the other party to follow her. The young monk Name followed her for 2 miles, watched her kill 3 patrolling trolls like chopping melons and vegetables, and then untied the other party's boat. He finally couldn't help asking. "Excuse me, may I ask, Miss Van Cleef, where are we going?" "Go save your caring big sister. Please don't make such jokes. I am a person who serves the holy light and is willing to dedicate my life to the holy light." The young pastor's words were insincere. Vanessa rolled her eyes and looked at him until the young pastor lowered her head, and she replied, "You can tell by your appearance that you can't drive a boat. Come on, the distance is not close, take the river faster, I'm short on time, try to solve your matter within 2 days." After Name boarded the boat, there was an episode. This guy was clumsy. The troll's boat was very small. He was used to being a big human boat, and he jumped on it in a hurry and almost capsized the boat. Keeping the balance of the hull, this avoids the fate of the friendship boat turning over. "Tell me what you know," Vanessa asked while paddling. Name wanted to help row together, but Vanessa couldn't trust his skills. This guy looked like a rich boy, and he probably didn't do rough work like rowing. Dafan, the self-proclaimed captain, can build boats, so she can row boats naturally. She has been trained by Dafan for a period of time in her previous life, and with the experience of rowing in the park in her previous life, she can barely say that she can row boats. A big man stood and watched, and a weak woman rowed the boat. If it was done in modern society, it would be sprayed to death, but it's fine here. There is a maid in Name's family, so he doesn't think there is any problem with it. He sorted out his thoughts, and then said, "Their madness was first discovered 3 months ago." Mr. Colonel became very weird. He often patrolled the camp with a sword in the middle of the night. Someone saw him wiping the edge of the knife. Blood, but he explained that he encountered a troll. After a while, the spirits of the big guys became more and more disturbed. Ms. Miranda has been taking care of them, but in the end even she. Vanessa nodded slightly, which was similar to what she understood. "Tell me about the results of your investigation." "When I entered the camp, Mr. Captain Doran was arguing with you." "What happened on the troll slate?" Mentioning his hard work, Brother Name was a little excited. He danced and said, "The witchcraft of the trolls is completely different from the magic of Dalaran. Can you imagine it? They only rely on rough written descriptions. You can use one or several witchcraft proficiently, but our human mages need to spend years of learning to reach this level. It is just a few simple symbols, holy light. Really should let those masters come and see." He chattered a lot, worrying about the inefficiency of human mages in his words. Vanessa doesn't think so. There are a lot of human mages, and there are more elves, but trolls? Has the troll ever produced any well-known mages? They use lightning bolt well, but that's a shaman-oriented spell, right? It seemed that she didn't take it seriously. On the one hand, Name was showing off, and on the other hand, he was probably trying to deter her and prevent her from crossing the river and tearing down the bridge. Reading www.yuyuganshu.com saw a blue light gathered in his palm, and then an electric light was thrown towards the big tree not far away. "Are you a fool?" Vanessa hurriedly stopped paddling, and carefully guarded her surroundings. "In the middle of the night, you sent a lightning bolt on the boat because you were afraid that the enemies and beasts around you would not. Did you know you were passing by?" She drew out her cruel barb and buzzing dagger, and stared around, hoping that the predators in Stranglethorn Vale would go home early to sleep tonight and not see Priest Nimit's dickish behavior. It's a pity that things didn't go as expected. There was nothing abnormal in the sight, but a subtle sound of water flow was heard in the sensitive ears. There seemed to be some huge monster swimming underwater in the middle of the night. The other party was very patient, swimming back and forth, and tried several times, trying to find their flaws. "There's something underwater." The young pastor didn't notice anything unusual until this time. Thank you for your reminder, but I suggest you better shut up, your voice will disturb it. To be honest, Vanessa is also a little scared. What is this underwater? I couldn't see clearly in the middle of the night, so I could only estimate it based on the rough trajectory. The thing underwater was at least 7 meters long and 1 meter wide, and it was swimming very fast. She was a little confused for a while, and she really didn't think about it. What is this underwater? Sharks? Are we in the river? How could there be sharks here? Could it be a crocodile? But this crocodile is too big. The young pastor had read many books, and he kept talking about his conjectures. After getting his reminder, Vanessa suddenly realized, it's probably a crocodile, a big, very rare crocodile. She now feels as if she has transmigrated into the world of prehistoric giant crocodiles. Fortunately, she is not as weak as the protagonists in the movie, and she still has the ability to resist or fight back.